Go. Hey, welcome everybody to the No Stroke Podcast. Mike, this is episode 6 for us, right? We were
We're on
6. We were
two hands now.
You got it. We were on fire in May, and we had a lot of life relocations, and you were on your way back, settled in, ready to go. I was into some new projects, so here we are, back at it. Happy to see you again.
It's good to be here. We definitely a lot of transition over the last personal lives, picking up a few new roles which are exciting.
For sure.
But yeah, still keeping our heads down and working on the pod and the EnableUs community. So I want to bring in this week, we're going to have a guest that will be joining us in a couple minutes that I haven't met personally, but David knows quite well. But before that, we're going to kick off and we're going to play a new game here. It's called Hot Off the Press. All right. So I've dug into latest research, articles, PR stories, late breaking abstracts, anything to do with stroke recovery, right? And the industry as a whole. So we'll kick off. I'm going to read through a couple items that I have, and then it's on you to say, this is what I like as kind of the leading insight. And then from there, we'll segue into and grab Benga. So here we go. Ready? Item 1, we have Peloton moving into the wearables space with a heart rate monitor armband. Quite interesting. And they've also, now that's for our audience, that is a report. They haven't confirmed, but there's rumblings.
Yep.
So we've always said how Peloton's going to be getting to rehab. We're there. Mm-hmm. They've also moved in corporate wellness, which I think was obviously a good play for them. We then have Physitrack, a company you know quite well, telehealth, telerehab company, doing great things for the PT community and their patients. Recording an IPO at it was on the Swedish stock exchange, so it's like the Nasdaq. They call it Nasdaq First Month Premier Growth Market. So it's pretty much, let's learn before we go and play in the big boy in the major leagues. It's the developmental league for the Nasdaq. So they've IPO'd at a whopping 24 million in SEK, which is converted, it's the Swedish currency, but it's actually 74 million in US dollars.
USD, okay, wow,
USD,
okay,
yeah, nice payout. But yeah, interesting play for them. And then the one that I think you're going to choose here, Apple released a new biomarker on their iPhone for walking and steadiness. So what this does is measures gait in terms of how fast and evenly you walk and the timing of each step. So again, big players coming into this space. Take it away, David.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do this in a minute because I could talk on all three of these. First of all, I'm going to go with Apple, but that's going to be a nice segue into our guest. But Physitrack, I've told you for a while, I use them every day in my telehealth practice. Solid product. I love the design. I think there's a lot of there's a lot more coming their way, and this will certainly help. The Peloton, it's nice that they're in the news for we're on the pulse of something that we think is coming, but they've been in the news also for the wrong reasons recently. But I like that. I like the if that comes through, it will give users of the Peloton more options for monitoring the heart rate, because I guess there's been some issue with their API connecting with the Apple Watch. So there's some angry users there. So but I'm gonna Apple, doing telehealth, the ability to track data and falls are a big issue in healthcare. And you know what? Good for Apple. They're going after it. Now they've had that tied to their watch. They've fall detection, and as they've start to improve the capabilities for that, it's certainly something this nice pairing with the fall component that you just mentioned. That's actually right built into the phone. So the nice thing with that is you're wearing it in your pocket. So I like it. I like it because as a provider being able to kind of maybe share, because there's another part to that announcement that they're coming up with more ways to share the data if the user
Yes.
wants to
Yes.
share it. So
Hmm.
that leads to,
Hmm.
home monitoring for adult parents, adult children of those parents. But it also leads into the potential for just learning what's going on between visits, or
Hmm.
and there's pros and cons, and we don't have time to go into all. Maybe at the end we can ask we
I
ask our
think you are
guests.
past your minute,
I
David,
am
but
all
you,
right. I can geek out on this stuff all day, so let's bring our guest in. And I'm excited. You haven't met him yet. Benga Adeeko from Gait is joining us today, and let's bring him on in.
here we go.
Benga's connecting in with us.
Benga.
Hello.
There.
Welcome,
Nice to meet you.
Benga.
Hi guys, how are you guys doing?
Welcome. We're doing well. Welcome to the No Stroke Podcast, Benga, and welcome. You have not met my co-host and co-founder EnableUs, Michael Garrow. So welcome to the show, and please meet Michael here.
Benga,
Thanks, David.
pleasure to be introduced.
Yes.
So we were coordinating times, and apology, you've been a godsend in terms of being flexible with us with scheduling this. Whereabout are you located? Are you're West Coast?
I'm in San Diego, California. Sunny San
Oh,
Diego.
you're a smart man.
So,
Really?
beautiful.
Some might say that, some might not. With housing prices these days,
I hear you.
Benga, I'll start by saying, I enjoy listening to you present at the Rehab Tech Summit. I think that was back in February of this year.
Yeah.
And I I hearing you present, so I already know your story and how it started and your pivot from your sport performance products into your beginnings in rehab. So I'm really glad you joined us today, because I tried chasing you down around that, for everything that was virtual back then. I think
Yeah.
we had that virtual lounge going on. So at the summit, I was, wanted to talk to you to bring your story and your product to our audience. And then I finally got lost in that virtual room. And I said, I'm going to connect with you after the conference. So here we are. If you don't mind, I'll just take 20 seconds and just do a quick bio, and then I'd love you to jump in and tell us your story.
Sure.
So yeah, great. So Benga originally co-founded his company as a sport performance equipment company. And as a former Division I college sprinter, USA track and field level 1 certified coach, and professionally licensed mechanical engineer, he had a passion and know how to develop the Speedmaker, which is a training device used by athletes to increase strength and power in the hip extensors. So then the application of the Speedmaker, and I love this pivot, in the healthcare industry has led to the development of the new Gait, an assisted mobility aid that can provide help in training for movement pattern restoration. So did I miss anything? I got that right. I got that right from your website. So
That's about it. That's about it. Yes. And I can kind of divulge a little bit more about that and flesh it out a little bit more. So yeah, thanks for the intro, by the way. And as you alluded to, originally I had developed a product called the Speedmaker. And I've got a background in mechanical engineering as well as track and field. At the time I was coaching a youth track and field club, and I really wanted to develop some sort of device that could help my athletes run faster. And so I wanted it to be something wearable, something using elastic bands, and I wanted to help strengthen and develop the hip extensors, the hamstrings, and the glutes. So I ended up developing this device called the Speedmaker, and it was going well, and we had the product on several different athletes, and then a physical therapist in Michigan got her hands on the device, and she works in this really rural clinic in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and her clinic doesn't have a lot of tools, a lot of extra tools. There's no exoskeleton. There's no overhead walking gait device. And so she didn't really have a lot of things to work with. And so she saw the SpeedMaker and said, you know what, I think I can use this on this spinal cord patient that I'm working with, but who's kind of hit a plateau, and I'm having a hard time getting her past that. So this young lady, I think she was about 22 or 23 at the time, had suffered a spinal cord injury, and at the time she was walking with a pair of canes when her physical therapist, Kim Springer, took this device, again, made for athletes, and put it on her to help her rehab. And almost immediately, Emily saw changes, amazing positive changes in her gait and in her balance. And so her physical therapist, Kim, continued to rehab Emily with it, and she just kept on improving. Eventually, Emily bought a unit for herself. We weren't even selling them as rehab devices at that time, but it was really helping her out. So she ended up buying one, and she went from being told that she was never going to walk again or run again by her surgeon pre and post surgery to being able to walk a lot more confidently and a lot better with the device on, eventually being able to walk without the device. And then she actually was even able to run in a 5K race with the SpeedMaker device on at the time. And so that was just incredible. As someone who's not a clinician, I had never been around that world before. And so for a product to really impact someone's life like that, that was just completely foreign to me. And the feeling of helping her achieve that goal of walking and running far surpassed the feeling of helping an athlete, get a little bit faster in his 40-yard time, or a little bit faster in his sprint time. And so that was the real turning point for the company to pivot from that SpeedMaker to the new Gait device.
Yeah,
it's a brilliant story, Benga. That's cool. That's very cool. And for those who might be you're watching it, and you've spoke to the product, and obviously the massive potential that's there, and stories that survivors and people who have used this product. But can you give a description, like what is this like? What's the, if we have stroke survivors who are listening today that might have foot drop and other issues with their gait, what would their experience with the new Gait be like? How would they use it?
Yeah. To kind of better describe how it looks, I think a lot of clinicians will understand the concept of using TheraBands and trying to manipulate gait using TheraBands, whether you're tying a TheraBand around the foot up to the shank right below the knee, and trying to facilitate foot dorsiflexion and help with foot drop, or whether you're trying to do the same but with hip flexion or something like that. And that's essentially what the new Gait is doing. It is using elastic bands to help facilitate different muscle movements. And so it has that same feel to it as using TheraBands would. However, it's a device that's specifically made for that purpose versus, with TheraBands, you're kind of jerry-rigging something together and hoping that it works. And so conceptually, that's essentially what the new Gait does. However, it's far more versatile and user-friendly than trying to fiddle with TheraBand and do that. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the device looks like. As far as what it does, there are many different aspects of it. It's a modular type of design, and so there is a foot drop application to it, and that's kind of the most basic part of the device, and actually probably one of the most used. A lot of patients, as you two probably know, a lot of patients hate their AFOs, whether it's for the comfort level or just the rigidity of it. A lot of people just hate their AFOs. And so we've got a solution that is an alternative for an AFO, or in some cases can be used in conjunction with an AFO, that helps with toe lift, but it also allows for ankle mobility. So essentially it's a, elastic band that goes from the toe up to right below the knee to help with dorsiflexion. And so that's kind of the most basic portion of the new Gait.
And I'll say one of the first things, Benga, that really got me excited about your talk was, I think you probably had two light bulb moments, right? You had that light bulb moment. You first had your first product, right? When you were, you had a product that worked for sport performance, but when you saw it work on someone who was really impaired and moving to, making such a really meaningful change in their day-to-day mobility capabilities based on something that you created and had some help from PTs to kind of just help you down that initial path. But when I see, and you mentioned it, one of the PTs who first helped you with this mentioned, you mentioned like the exoskeleton in a clinic. Your product is something, so even if the clinic could have time to use that device, you still can't send the patient home. We know one of the things we talk about all the time with our community is like driving change, neuroplasticity, rehab has to happen in the home. There has to be carryover. So
Absolutely.
because of your price point and your ability to make it accessible and available to a bigger audience, they can actually take that home. And there are so many great testimonials and stories on your website. It's really moving to read and see, in particular, the story that I'm not sure if this was a recent occurrence, but Jordan Valentine, that's really like, a tragic event with, I believe, her dad, right, in the helicopter crash, and then seeing her progress and measure from month to month, like she was committed to getting back out of her chair. And I think you guys have had a big part in seeing her reach that goal. So that's got to be, like you said, shaving off some time on the track is definitely a win-win. But to see how you've been able to take your product and actually transform lives in what you do every day, providing your product and continuing to innovate, it's really inspiring, and it's something that carries that message through. Like it's not 2 sets of 10 in the clinic, it's hundreds of repetitions at home when you're practicing that drives that change. So you enable that ability to give them a tool to assist with that change.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you take much, we've spoke on it a few times, David and I, like the concept of rehab and how it correlates to training like an athlete. So you have that background in athletics and you know what that repetition makes. So how do you bring that background within athletics into, one, your role as a leader in the company, but two, like how that product sits with your users? Do you kind of take that correlation and think through that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, with my role, I'm the CEO of Gait, and so being the CEO, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, which is true with any athlete, at any level. There's a lot of self-motivation that's involved in that, because if you want to do better in your particular sport, you've got to do more than just what you're doing at practice. You got to put in extra reps. You got to make sure that your diet's right. You've got to do more than what's necessary when the coach is just looking at you. And so obviously I take that into my role as CEO of Gait, being that we are a very early stage startup, and so we have got to do what we need to do in order to survive as a startup. And so there's a lot of scrappiness that's involved, a lot of long hours that's involved. And so that's nothing new to me as a former athlete. As far as on the company side and the products, we have an entire product kind of pipeline that we have imagined for Gait. And we're really, like I said, we started off with the athletic device, and we've kind of put that on hold for a while to focus in on the rehabilitation device. However, we plan on, getting into the pediatric market, and then getting into the sports rehabilitation market, and then eventually getting into the sports performance market. So we see ourselves eventually kind of coming full circle back around to the sports performance, but starting with the Gait product and starting with that physical rehabilitation product.
Yeah, it must have been a bit of a learning curve, starting in the sports performance area, and like how, and then moving into, a regulated industry as well. Are you guys classified as a medical device, or how does that work?
So right now we are not. We're selling it as a exercise therapeutic device. We are going down the path of becoming an FDA Class 1 exempt device, so a registered device. So we're still in progress on that. However, as you alluded to, there was definitely a learning curve coming from, my non-clinical background and non-healthcare background into this industry. But I'm just lucky that I've got a team of clinicians around me. I've got three clinicians with dozens of years of experience between them, and they've really shown me the ropes. However, there's still a lot to learn. And I'm not saying I'm a therapist yet, but I've learned a few terms here and there. Let's put it that way. And one thing that I can really really admire clinicians for is just their ability to impact lives on a day-to-day basis. And that was something that me as an engineer, I didn't quite get that luxury. But when I have meetings with my clinical team, it's crazy, because every week they'll just tell me another story of, oh, I put the Gait on this person and I made them cry because, now they're able to walk like they haven't been able to walk in years. And it's just, it's crazy because it just becomes a regular thing. It's like every week they've got at least one story of that. I'm like, wow, I had no stories of that as an engineer. But I'm just kind of living vicariously through my clinical team in that regards.
And I'm wondering too, the more clinics you engage with, how many times have you heard the story from a PT going, I've been trying to rig something up like this for, because if you were in a smaller clinic and you don't have access to 2 other 3 retraining Gait is very labor intensive. It's ergonomically terrible for just about every therapist who has to be bent over, helping to move and plant a foot and limb and transition through that Gait cycle. And I bet that MacGyver term probably has come up many times, that I've tried to do this and then I get lost, and at the end of the day I might write something down, I want to work on that, and then you get back to the reality of you have 3 hours of clinical notes to write before the next day starts, so that gets lost pretty quick. But the flexibility and the ability, like when you first started, how was the transition going up to the full harness system that, I know this is a podcast, but I'm sure we're going to put a lot of information in the show notes and folks can see if they're not unfamiliar with the product, how you expanded into the upper harness system to support and accentuate what you're doing with the hip, knee, and ankle.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of explained, just a small part of the Gait earlier with the dorsiflexion assistance or the foot drop assistance part, but the Gait is much more than that. There's essentially a full suit. And so there's a shoulder harness that's connected to a waist belt, and then limb straps both above and below the knee. And then connecting the limb straps and the waist belt can be a series of different elastic bands. And that's really what gives the new Gait its power, because it's the combination of the elastic bands and where they're put and where they're placed that really dictates and determines how you are affecting the gait and the posture of an individual. And so when the device was first conceived, it had all of those pieces. It had the shoulder harness, it had the waist belt, and it had the limb straps above the knee. And so that portion of it has actually always been in existence, and that's what the first clinician, Kim Springer, she used. She added the dorsiflexion piece to it, so the foot drop assist. That was, you know, obviously not something that we had for the athletic population, but that was something that she, you know, just kind of using her knowledge and her skill set, that she decided to add on. And then eventually, you know, we made that, you know, standard for our clinical kits. And yeah, so most clinicians who are out there using our device, they're using the full suit, because when you combine the shoulder harness aspect of it, then you can get some trunk extension. And so the force of the elastic bands kind of travels through the shoulders, and that gives a little bit of proprioceptive benefit there, and helps patients stand up taller and helps with posture.
Interesting. So before you jumped in, we were touching on kind of hot off the press items in the industry, right? So one area that, you know, we've kind of kept our eye on is Apple and what they're doing, you know, in the remote monitoring space, caregiving space, and now they've gotten into gait and mobility. So, you know, you've talked through the device, kind of, you know, and how it works, the benefits, you know, and you know, the different areas. Now, is there any component of looking at that data, right? So, because when you think about, especially in the rehab space, reimbursement's going to come from, all right, show us the impact, you know. So absolutely. How are you thinking around, you know, wearable devices, you know, your iPhone, now that Apple's in it, you know, what's your thought in terms of how that's going to work?
Yeah, you know, we're actually working on a grant application that we are possibly going to be introducing some IMU or gait sensors into the device, because yeah, we know that getting that quantitative data and really quantifying the benefits of a particular intervention is crucial, is key. And so we are devoted and committed to making sure that our device, you know, either can be integrated with something, or that we can supply something so that clinicians and patients really can see the benefits that they're having. And so currently we do have a gait assessment form, and so clinicians manually can keep track of, you know, things like the timed up and go, you know, 10-meter walk test, you know, simple things such as that. But having, you know, some sort of either sensor built in or integrating with some other off-the-shelf device could give some other types of information. And so that's something that is definitely on our radar.
Cool.
Right. And can you talk about the for a new user? You do a good job on your website dividing the clinical side from the patient side. What would that experience look like for someone from our audience that wanted to maybe get started with the new Gait, but they don't know what to do to take the first steps?
Yes, so absolutely. On our web, so first I would encourage them to go to our website, because as you said, we do have a step-by-step process on, you know, if someone's brand new to new Gait, how do they go from, you know, hearing about it to actually getting one? We've got that step-by-step process, but let me explain it. They would go to our website, and we've got a nice handy map on our website that shows where all of our trained clinicians are, because this is a device that requires a little bit of familiarity with it, and it needs to be properly configured. There is no one size fits all or one configuration fits all for every type of patient. It really needs to be configured. And so we work with physical therapists. So our main goal as a company is to, you know, get as many physical therapists or, you know, other rehab professionals working with the device so that the patients that they see can come in contact with it. So if a patient goes to our website, they can either check our map, see if there's any clinician in their area that is using it. If not, we work with their clinician to do a clinical trial. So we'll do a free 30-day trial for the clinician. The clinician can take an entire clinical unit, use it on that patient as well as any other patient that they have in mind. And then that way the patient themselves can, kind of figure out, is this working for me or not? And the clinician can also have 30 days to kind of figure out this new device. This is brand new. This patient came to me and said, hey, kind of check this out. And so it gives both the patient and the clinician a no risk, no obligation, a way of using a new technology. And so that's how a new patient would kind of come into contact with it.
And
it's an excellent opportunity.
And I also did see, Benga, that you have opportunities for training for clinicians on your site as well. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So that was one of the things that we were working on prior to COVID, and then just kind of accelerated due to COVID, is our online training opportunities. So we have developed a course where we essentially take everything that we have done, or everything we would have done in a live in-person in-service, and condense that down into more of an interactive course. So it isn't just a 40-minute YouTube video that you gotta just watch through. It's more of a course format where there's different chapters, different sections. You've got little videos here, you've got images, it's a lot more interactive. There's a quiz at the end. And so we offered that to our clinicians, free of charge, of course, and it gives them the information needed to be able to, get started and get going with the new Gait. So any clinician who says, this sounds like a really cool device, I want to get going with it now, can go to our website, and we've got information on how to get started. We've got a link to the course. After they're done taking the course, they'll get sent an email that gives them next steps on how to get their trial unit.
Great. And I saw a short video during the Rehab Tech Summit. You were just starting with the partnership with PESI. Is that still for continuing education? The name, I have to look. Shelley Dennett. I just did her fall prevention certification.
Oh, did you?
So is that where are you at with that? Is that actually,
Yeah.
was that a one-time thing, or is that still live?
So yeah, that is now out as a recorded class. So we did a partnership with PESI, and we collaborated with Shelley Dennett, who is a fall prevention specialist. She teaches a course in collaboration with PESI as well. And so we worked with her to develop essentially a New Gait 101 course. And so that is available on PESI, on the PESI website now as a recording. So she hosted the course live back in March, and now it's available as a recording. We're in talks with them to, it all depends on the COVID situation and whatnot, but to possibly offer that course as an in-person live course, which is what typically would happen in non-pandemic times. Is that
we'll be back soon, right?
We'll be back soon. Yeah. So we're working on that, and as of right now, PESI isn't doing a whole lot of those types of courses in person, but I'm sure with everyone getting vaccinated and things of that nature, it's only a matter of time.
Well, we'll come out to San Diego for your next one, for sure. Let us know.
That too. Oh yeah, remind me, where are you guys located?
Both East Coast. I'm just outside of Providence in a town called Cumberland, Rhode Island.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. That's right.
Yeah, and I'm in Connecticut. So,
that's right.
Yeah, tucked in the Northeast.
So right.
I have a few friends that moved up.
Come out to San Diego.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Come out whenever
you're in the right spot.
Don't tempt us.
Hey, where'd you?
Don't give us your address. We'll be there.
Where'd you run track, Benga?
I ran at the University of Texas at San Antonio.
Very
Originally,
cool.
I'm from
Nice.
Texas, from San Antonio.
Okay,
Originally,
nice.
so
So
Super.
San Antonio Spurs fan.
a big Spurs fan. Yes, it's our
Yeah,
only
for a while.
professional team, so everyone there has got to be a Spurs
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah, that looks like a nice city. They have the little canal running through the middle of the city and everything.
The
From
river.
what
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen, it's
Have you been?
it's a nice spot. No, just kind of seen images and some people traveling there, but seems like a nice part of the Texas.
It's
I have
not too
family in
bad.
Houston,
Not too bad.
so
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Just don't go in the
Texas is
dead
a
of
big place,
summer
though.
though. It's
Yeah.
hot.
I
Really
hear ya.
hot.
So we might we ask every guest that comes on, and I know you've kind of gotten yourself into this rehab space over the years, but you have a good instinct, and I think you understand kind of where things are moving, with your company and the industry as a whole. So I'd be interested to hear, and again, we ask this to everybody that comes on, if we were to give you, a magic ball, magic wand, and you could reshape, how specifically we look at stroke rehab, but we'll open it to neuro rehab, for instance, in this case. So, how would you imagine in the next 5-10 years that this rehab space looks, and maybe Newgate included?
Yeah, you know what? I think in the next 5 to 10 years, the stroke rehab or neuro rehab is going to look a lot different than it currently looks. I think there's going to be a lot more research showing that repetitive rehabilitation, repeated walking does a lot for the rehabilitation of folks with gait issues. Going into therapy, for an hour at a time, 3 days a week is not going to cut it. They've got to go home with something that is helping them continue that rehabilitative effort. And so I think there's going to be a big push for at-home devices. Currently there are a lot of really, really cool, especially from an engineering standpoint, but really, really expensive and not very practical devices out there that are really good and they look really cool in the clinic, but they're not very practical for someone to, buy at home. And insurance companies are not not willing to pay, 5-6 figures for some of these devices. And so I see a trend towards more affordable rehabilitative devices that might not have all the bells and whistles of a big fancy 6-figure machine in the clinic, but can give a patient that constant at-home rehabilitation between sessions and then even after they've been discharged. And so I think that is really what's going to make the difference in someone's rehabilitative care. There's only so much a therapist, a rehab specialist can do in, whether it's inpatient or outpatient, few days a week, 30 minutes to an hour per session. And so that's kind of where I see the industry going down.
That athlete mindset, moving reps.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well said,
You've
Benga.
got to get your reps in.
Yeah.
It's all about neuromuscular reeducation. And so if you're not practicing, the proper gait over and over, it's not going to get better quick enough.
Spot on. Anything you want to close on, David?
No, I was just wondering if there's anything you feel we missed, anything else you'd like to share with our audience, Benga, and we'll definitely put as much information in the show notes as you'd like, after we get this produced and out there. But closing comments?
Just one kind of last story that I wanted to tell. While I am not necessarily a clinician, and a lot of my patient interaction is either through customer service or interacting with my clinical team and them telling me stories of the different patients that they work with. And my clinical team is located in a more rural area. And so being that they're located in that rural area, they kind of see everybody. You know, it's not like a big town where they work at a giant hospital and, you know, there's a spinal cord injury center, there, you know, there's a neuro center, there's an ortho center. My clinical team, they see everybody, you know, even sometimes even peds. And so they've really gotten to be able to put the device on a wide variety of different types of patients. However, a little under a year ago, a really good friend of mine, he came to me and he told me that his mom had suffered a stroke. And it turned out that she had suffered many little strokes before this larger stroke that sent her to the hospital. And he had to move from San Diego back home to LA to go take care of her. And, you know, she was in inpatient rehab for a little bit. And when she finally was able to go back home and had an at-home PT and OT work with her, I made a visit up to LA to go visit him and his mom, and we got the new Gait strapped on her. And she was in pretty bad shape gait wise, but it made quite a difference even on that one day that I was with her. He said that prior to that visit, she had not gone out of her home, you know, since coming back from the hospital. She hadn't stepped out on the porch. But that day, she wanted to not only step out on the porch, but she wanted to go get some food. So we actually, we got out and, you know, walked over to the car and went to go get some food. And he said that was the first time that she had done that since she got back. And so, you know, while I don't interface with patients too often, that was, you know, one of the few times that I did, because it had that personal connection to it. And she's still using it. You know, she goes into rehab now, and she's using it with her therapist. And my friend Josh, he'll send me videos occasionally and show me her progress. But
that initial that drive to LA, seeing that in person was well worth your time going up there to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he's like a brother to me.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I have two use. You know, my mom. That's why I'm in this. You know, my mom had a stroke when she was 28. I was 6 months old. You know, and I know she'd be a beneficiary of using the new Gait. So trust me, I'm going onto your website, looking at the map, seeing what we could do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a brilliant story, man. And you know what? The more you see that, and you have those close to home experiences, and it's your product. You know, you've developed it. So I mean, kudos to you, and you know, keep the head down and keep it going, because a lot more people could benefit from it.
Yeah. Hey, now, Benga, before we let you go, I just have to clarify one thing. I have to have Mike raise up his glass for me there, please. I want to just clarify.
This one?
No, the other one. Okay. So Benga, he is not. So that's supposedly his rose-colored glass, right? This is, we're East Coast. It's the end of the day for us, but he tells me that it's just, right?
I came from a work little after party thing, so it is cranberry juice.
Oh,
but,
okay. All right.
Yeah, it has to look a bit different, you know.
All right.
That's cranberry juice in a wine glass. Okay.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Thank you so much, Benga, for your time today. Really enjoyed getting a chance to talk more with you, and we'll hopefully get this up and across to our audience, and any information you want to include over in the show notes before we get it out there, absolutely make that available, and we'll put it on tag to our show here today. So
hey, brilliant meeting you, Benga. And yeah, if I'm out in San Diego, you'll hear from me.
Yes, yeah, let me know. It was great meeting you, Mike. Good seeing you again, David.
Likewise. Thanks again, Benga. So that wraps up our show, and we thank you for tuning in. We encourage you to like, review, subscribe
Subscribe.
to our show. We're finally on
should,
all the
yeah.
podcast channels. So
I think did we just get over the 1.1 million mark?
yeah, I
Or
think
is that-
we're getting just, yeah. I told you, Benga, soon.
we're
Okay.
there. Joe Rogan numbers soon. All right.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Benga.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.